This tutorial is to give a basic overview of NewlyDRAW version 2.0 operation. First thing we need to do is obviously launch NewlyDRAW, and we need to create a new document. We can either go to this button on the button bar, which is create a new file, go to the file menu, click on new, or as you've seen on the side here, many of the features within NewlyDRAW, like any other Windows-based program, has a combination keystroke here that allows you to do shortcuts. So in this case, new, Control N, open a document, Control plus O, save the document, Control S, etc. So very handy to remember those, and you can fly through projects much quicker. Okay, now that we're still in this menu, we're going to import the image that I created within CorelDRAW, CheckMate Lasers logo. And the reason why I do all my designs within CorelDRAW, I've been using this since version 2.0, and now it's on version X6. And Corel just has a lot of tools and features that the program does an outstanding job of design, object, etc. creation. You can do quite a bit in NewlyDRAW, and as you look at the interface of CorelDRAW versus NewlyDRAW, same similar Corel-like toolbar here, Corel tool like similar Corel-like color palette. The static bar is similar, and even the dynamic bar is similar. So there's a lot of things that this NewlyDRAW version 2 is very similar to CorelDRAW, so the learning curve is minimized because of that fact. NewlyDRAW though is specifically for laser output and assigning your power, speed settings, etc. to your objects in order to output them on your laser machine. I highly recommend you use CorelDRAW, Illustrator, AutoCAD, whatever other vector-based application to do your actual core designs. This program is great for finishing, cleaning up, modifying things like this, but to do the core designs, you should be using another program designed specifically for that. So I'm selecting the DXF file, which I exported from Corel, to import it to NewlyDRAW. I'm going to import that. Next thing I want to do is zoom in. So clicking on the zoom tool, I'm going to zoom into all objects so I can see clearly what I'm working on here. As you can see, the imported logo has two colors assigned to it. The word lasers is in black, and the rest of the image, the logo, is in red outline. What I'm going to do here though is I want to show you something, because colors are essential on how you assign engraving or cutting. Now on the black itself, I am going to assign the word lasers the color black, and I want it to be a fill color. So clicking with the left mouse button assigns a fill color, which tells the laser system that these objects that are filled with black are going to be raster engraved. Now these triangles right here, and the circles are the 8, and the triangles are the X and M. What I'm going to do is, I've already combined those earlier as one object, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a color of blue. So I'm going to right mouse click on blue. So right mouse gives it an outline color. And the reason why I'm going to do that is I want to just etch those shapes into the material and actually not cut all the way through. But on the outside, I definitely want that outside logo area to completely cut out. So I'm going to click on the red to completely cut out. What you need to get in the habit of doing is red and black are the most common colors being used in engraving industry. Black is always the engraving color, and red is always a cutting color. The reason why is that you can only assign one power and speed to a color. You can't assign two different powers and speeds to the same color. In other words, that word lasers, I can't assign one power and speed for cutting it and then come back and outline cut it with the different settings. It has to be a color for a power and speed. So in this case, I'm going to assign an engraving speed to the black, an engraving and power to the black for engraving, and for etching, just to etch into the material, the blue will get its own power and speed settings, and to cut all the way through the material, the complete outline of CheckMate will be obviously more power to allow it to cut all the way through. Before I go into the dialog box to assign my power and speed settings for each color, the one thing I want to make sure is the order of the output order of my objects. And there's 3 colors here, black, red, and blue, so I want to make sure those go in the right order. So this button right here, the engrave order, click on this, and we can see that it's going to cut out first. It's going to engrave the lasers second, and do the inside blue area third. That's incorrect. I always wanted to engrave first. I wanted to do the inside of objects cutting out second, and the outside always cut out third. As you can see, it's a very simple process. I'll turn this off again by clicking that button one more time. Then you don't see those numbers any longer. Click on this engrave order button one more time, and it shows us the three different boxes of the order of this project's going to output. And the way you change the order, and I'll just do it reverse, you click on the box, changes the order, so that's number 1. This will become number 2. This will become number 3. Okay, so let's reverse that again. So I want it to always engrave first. That's critical in this in any laser engraving project. And if you have objects in the center that you want to do something different, like I did here, etching, then you want that to be second. And if you do the outside completely cut out, that'd be third. And just click on that. Now, just so you'll know, if all the cutting objects, the center blue ones and the outside red, were all red, then the laser system by default, it's built into the system, will always cut out the center objects first and then the outside second. So that's a given. But if you do something like what I've shown here, then you want to put the order in the way you want it. We're now ready to assign our power and speed settings to our particular project here. I'm going to have you select the Engrave Out button. Once we access that dialog box, I'm going to have you notice that there's a button here and a button here that are identical. These are your parameters for assigning your speed and power settings for your particular project. The reason why I want you to go into this dialog box is once it's done with your settings, click on OK, you're back into the right screen to send this to your machine to start engraving. So let's go ahead and click on this and explain what these settings are you're going to assign. Now, we have our 3 colors here. Red, our black for engraving the word lasers, our red for cutting out the entire logo, and the blue for doing the inside etching objects. So let's start off with the black. Okay. While that's selected, we now have what by default it shows scan, because we told the machine, or the software is going to tell the machine, with our assigning the fill being the color black, we're telling it we want it to engrave, which in this case is calling it scan. Same concept. Now the velocity is your speed setting. We're going to go maximum 400 millimeters a second, never exceed this. Even though the machine, the software will try to force the machine to go faster, you could have some issues where it might slam into the side because it's just going too fast. So I highly recommend you stay below 400, and you should have already done your testing on your machine with your material, with your wattage, and you know what these settings are already. And so speed would be at whatever you find optimal for your taste, and power as well, which is a percentage of your wattage. So 50 watts of power, drop that down to say 50%, that would equal 25 watts of power. Laser tube power is completely ignored. That's only needed if you had a second laser tube installed on the machine. You're always going to use mode of mono, and your gap setting refers to when the lens assembly goes to one direction. In this case, we're going to go right. It drops down a specific distance, that's that gap setting, and goes to the left. And then it drops down that specific distance again, the gap setting, and goes to right. So as it's going left to right, back and forth, it's always going to drop down a specific distance that you've entered here in order to create that fill engraving job process. Now, because the DT series has a 1.77 inch focal length distance, 0.05 seems to be the optimal setting for that particular lens. You can experiment with this. If you make this a larger number, your lines will be much more separated. If you make it a smaller, they will overlap more often. So it's your call how you want to do that, but typically 0.05 is the ideal setting. Okay, and we have this box right here called output. You can actually send a job over and tell it not to output that specific color. So it would do the cutout of everything here, but completely ignore the word lasers, because we've told the machine, even though this color and this object was sent to the laser machine, the laser recognizes this selection here as turned off. So even though it receives it, it won't output it. So that's something to remember, okay? And we'll get into that into another tutorial of how to center this particular design within a pre-cut piece of material. But for now, that's an overview of what that represents, that output selection. Let's go to the, we'll do the blue first. Okay, under blue, which is just an etching, we don't want to cut all the way through, we're going to decrease this power to say 35% power, and speed, you already have that setting if you already know your particular speed setting for your material and your wattage. And we're always going to use cut along because it's going to follow the line itself around, or excuse me, in the centers here. It's going to follow these line outlines to give us our cutting within that particular design. Now, so we have a slow speed of 20 millimeters a second, but we drop the power down so we don't cut all the way through. On red, we're going to change that. We want to go, we could use the same speed, that's not the problem or not the issue, but we might want to go up to, you say, 90% power to cut all the way through the material. And again, as you can see, all the colors have the output checked, meaning when this gets sent to the laser machine, the laser understands that that color red, which is the outline of the laser of the CheckMate Lasers logo, that red will use a speed of 20 millimeters a second and 90% power, and the laser knows it needs to output that specific color. Once you've assigned your power and speed settings, then click on OK. You're back into this dialog box and you're ready to click on Start Engraving to go to the next screen. Alright, now that we've assigned our speed and power settings to our objects to engrave and or cut as we want that project to output, we're ready to control the laser machine. First of all, you're obviously going to put your material on the table of the laser system, and you're going to move the head, the lens assembly, to the starting point, top left corner of your material. Now the easiest way to do it is click on unlock. What that's going to do is unlock the lens assembly so you can move it by hand to the precise location you want to start the engraving project. The other method is to input a specific number here of distance. In this case we got it set to 10 millimeters, and when you click any one of these arrows to move the lens assembly, it's going to move in 10 millimeter increments. So you want to get very, very precise. This is the way to do it. If you want to just do it very quickly, unlock is the way to do it. Once you've done that, if you click on this move rectangle, what that's going to do is do an outline of your object around the logo here, just this object, to show you if your design is going to fit on your material. If you do draw, you don't want to do that one because the move just moves the lens assembly. You can use a red diode to visually see if you're on your material properly. If you click on draw, what draw does is it does the same thing as move, except the laser beam's actually firing. So not recommended to use that one. Once you've decided that you've put your lens assembly on the top left corner of your starting position of your object, and you did that either by unlocking the screen, unlocking the lens assembly, or with this specific setting you use the steps here to move it to that precise point, and then you did a move rectangle to confirm that you're in the right position, all you have to do is click on start and wait patiently for the job to complete. With that said, this is the conclusion of the basic operation of the NewlyDRAW 2 version software on the DT series of the CheckMate Laser systems.